Welcome into Bayou Bengals football, everyone. So let's talk. So Mike Denbrock had a press conference today. Mike Denbrock, if you're not familiar, he is the offensive coordinator for LSU. So Denbrock said some interesting things. He said, we're not where we want to be, and to not ask him about them coming to any conclusions at this point. At that, I assume he was referring to that they're not going to announce any starters, or they're too deep at this point, which I think is good because today was just the first day of pads. So if you're coming to conclusions as far as making depth chart after just seeing guys without pads and then seeing one day with pads, if you're making starting lineups based off of that, then yeah, that's probably not ideal. So. But yeah, they want obviously stress that they want to be good, and they wanted how to be good. They want to do good things all the time. And he was talking about Malik Neighbors, and he was saying that Malik Neighbors, this is a guy who just really has a drive to be great. And not only is that shown on the field, but it sounds like Malik Neighbors shows that every day in practice. So Malik Neighbors, one of their best players on offense, their best wide receiver, guy that's just so electric with the ball in his hands, knows how to get open, runs routes with a purpose, has got good footwork. So yeah, they're expecting big things out of Malik Neighbors, and that's really what I've touched on. Is this the year where Malik Neighbors just goes crazy? He has just a monster campaign. Like we're talking like a 1,300 yard season. You see his receiving touchdowns go up. You see him involved in end arounds, screens. They just find so many ways to get the guy the football. So Malik Neighbors due for a really big year. I really like his game a lot. He's a super talented wide receiver who's done a lot of nice things for him. You saw him take a big leap in year 2. We'll see if he takes another step now in only his true junior year. But yeah, talked a little bit about the offensive line. Sounds like Zaylen's Hurd has had flashes. Zaylen's Hurd, is going to be a popular question and a guy that the media is going to talk a lot about, just because Zaylen's Hurd comes in with such a high profile. He was a 5-star, one of the top offensive linemen one of the top offensive lineman recruits for this 2023 incoming freshman class. So yeah, there's a lot of questions about his game. Looked like he was running. I was watching some practice. Like I said, it's hard to speculate. They rotate a lot of guys with the first team, with the second team. Looked like he was going with some of the twos, but yeah, Zaylen's Hurd I think is a guy that's going to have a chance to get some playing time year one. A guy that's super strong, aggressive, can finish blocks in the run game. What I mean by that is really drive people back with aggression. So yeah, Zaylen's Hurd, really good football player. And a guy that, I think has the potential to play guard or tackle. I think he has that versatility in his game. So, yeah, he's certainly a guy to watch. DJ Chester, another big-time recruit. He's kind of projects as an interior offensive lineman, but, I wouldn't put it past that he has the ability to play offensive tackle as well. But yeah, and then the tight end group is a topic of conversation. They talk about how Connor Gilbreth they talked about Mason Taylor. Mason Taylor is trying to improve as a blocker, but I think they understand that even if he takes a step this year and if he comes back next year, I don't think Mason Taylor ever is going to be like an elite blocker at tight end. So you get in a guy like Connor Gilbreth, a guy that the versatility to play offensive tackle or tight end. I think Gilbreth is going to be that guy as far as just that dominant blocking tight end. So instead of just I think that was a perfect fit for LSU. Instead of just saying, bring in Mason Taylor, they have Markway too, but Markway's a good blocker. I'll get to him in a second. But to me, instead of, we'll bring in Mason Taylor, Jackson McGowan. They brought in Mason Taylor last year, but McGowan comes in this year. So we bring in some receiving threats at tight end. Instead of just being satisfied with that and adding Markway, a guy that can block, why don't we add another guy that can really block? So now we got 2 really good pass catchers and 2 really good blockers. So I think that instead of just being a really good run blocking team, why not try to be an elite run blocking team. Taking a guy like Connor Gilbreth, Mac Markway. So, knock on wood, hopefully there's no injuries for the LSU tight. But now you know that if you do have sustain an injury at the tight end position, you'll have at least one pass catcher, two really good blockers, or two good pass catchers, one run blocker. So there's depth not only in guys that can really block, but depth in guys that can really catch the ball. And Pipton, I didn't really break down his. I keep forgetting about Pimpton. Pimpton's another guy that's getting a lot of high praise just because of how big a body he is. He's going to put pressure, on defenders when they're covering man to man, just because the ability he has to go over the middle of the field. But yeah, Pimpton, a guy who looks like he does have an ability to block, but yeah, he's just going to pose kind of a unique threat in his own right, just because of his big body ability to, man to man, he's going to create a challenge, just a big catch radius, kind of like it reminds me of Darnell Washington from Georgia last year. Just that big body. The guy doesn't have to be, elite out of breaks and change of direction and all that stuff. And after the catch, just a big body that can threaten the middle of the field, I think is going to be is really awesome. And I think it's a really good complement to what they already have at tight end. But yeah, Aaron Anderson, his name keeps getting brought up a lot. I see Aaron Anderson, when I watch him, when I've watched just some of the practice clips and what I've seen based on the highlights, Aaron Anderson just looks as smooth as they come. This guy it's just natural, got good natural hands, a guy that just, it looks like, screens are going to be kind of the name of his game. But Mike Denbrock did make the point that, they don't want him to just be kind of that screen, end around type of guy. They're gonna need to find ways to, when he does catch the ball, they're gonna need to get him the ball in stride so he can make a man miss. So yeah, to me, Aaron Anderson has got an excellent skill set, and I'm a fan of what he can do. And yeah, they need to stress getting him the ball in a position where he can be turned and ready to make a defender miss and get upfield and utilize the run after a catch ability that he really demonstrates at a high level. So, yeah, Aaron Anderson, like Denbrock reiterated, this guy that's going to have to touch the football and make plays in this offense. But yeah, I like what Denbrock said. A reporter asked a really good question. How does having tight ends that can catch really help this offense? And Denbrock had a good answer. It makes us be able to go 4 wide, 11 personnel with three wide receivers. It gives LSU a lot of versatility. So I think they will. Brian, you trust that Brian Kelly? I know that was to me. That was a good question, but I think that LSU, based on what this coaching staff has done in the past, I think you trust that they're going to utilize their personnel well. I don't think you really have to. I don't think that's something that you really have to be concerned. Brian Kelly is a proven winning coach. I think he knows how to use his personnel. So Ashton Stamps, the corner, that was the big thing I took away from Brian Kelly's press conference a couple of days ago. It sounds like Ashton Stamps is bulked up. If you remember Stamps, 3-star cornerback recruit, he's an incoming freshman for this 2023 class. He's a guy 6 foot, 170 pounds. What stands out about Stamps' game, he's good in man-to-man coverage. He's got a good fluid back pedal. I think he is a guy that, physicality is not necessarily the name of his game, but he's not afraid to get physical with wide receivers. So I think him bulking up, adding strength, I think that will improve his game. Maybe not take it to like a high-end level, but it will take his game maybe the next level, a small step of improvement. So yeah, this is a guy who I think, does he play year one? Probably not. I think this is a guy that ideally you want a red shirt and get him just a ton of reps in practice, and I think he'll be a guy that'll be ready to play some meaningful snaps next year. But would I be surprised to see him on the field contributing in special teams or playing this year in the secondary at corner? Absolutely not. But yeah, I saw it looked like Zy Alexander was out there this running with the first team. Like I said, you can't really assume too much because a lot of guys get first team reps. Some guys that are second team. Some guys that are first team get second team reps. Some guys that are second team get first team reps. So there's just guys are getting reps all over. So But Zy Alexander, to me, in the spring game, and then it looks just basically, just watching him in practice, looks like he belongs. Same with Mac Markway. Mac Markway just looks like he belongs. He looks like, if you watched him in high school and you just watch him on the practice field, he looks like he was supposed to play Division I SEC level football. Now, does that mean he's going to be a superstar? No. Does that mean he's going to have a skill set that is elite, it translates to the NFL, and he becomes a difference maker? No, but looking the part, having a strong, muscular build, big, tall frame, that is usually are key ingredients to having success in SEC level Division I football. So Mac Markway certainly looks the part. In his hands, blocking is what you initially talk about with Mac Markway, but he's got really good hands as well. And the guy that I noticed that shallow crosses, I think, are going to be where he makes an impact in the passing game. He knows how to get open on those. He's a guy that's maybe not super quick in and out of breaks, change of direction stuff, maybe not his strong suit, but certainly a guy that has just aggressive nastiness to him, blocking, a guy that can really just drive people out of the play, shows the ability to pulls with bad intentions, pulls fearlessly. So yeah, Markway, as far as everything you want in a run blocker, sustaining run blocks, holding up in pass protection, holding anchor, he can do all that stuff. So Markway, a guy that you can put on the line of scrimmage, off the line of scrimmage. He can get open over the middle of the field. Mac Markway, to me, based off of what I've seen and what I'm hearing, it sounds like he is doing a lot of things that are making him worthy of the hype, and he has a chance to really live up to that high 4-star pedigree and make an impact early. But yeah, Braden Swinson, another guy too, the transfer from Oregon. I saw him out there. He looked pretty good. I like his ability to accelerate and get after quarterbacks, shows some pursuit. A guy that kind of like Ovia Gofu, a guy that just has experience playing at the Division I Power 5 level in Oregon where he's coming from. So to me, a guy like Swinson's not going to be a game changer for them. I don't think he'll ever be that guy, but not to take anything away from him, I think he will be a good player, and I think he will contribute to this team in his own right, based off of some of the skills I've talked about. Chasing down the quarterback, beating guys. I think this is a guy that they're going to have to, if he's out at defensive end or rush linebacker, I think there's a guy that's going to be able to get after the quarterback and beat interior offensive linemen with speed, especially when they run stunts. I think they'll run a lot of stunts and twists when he's in the game to take advantage of his quickness and ability to beat offensive linemen when it's one-on-one. So I think that'll be how they'll use Swinson a lot. Is a guy that can come off the edge. I think he can. I didn't really see it necessarily a lot, but I think he is a guy that can win with speed off the edge. So actually, yes, he can. He can win with speed off the edge. So to me, I think that's what Swinson, how Swinson's going to make a living, rushing the quarterback on twists coming inside, winning with speed off the edge, and just being a guy that brings a lot of experience. It can be kind of one of the veteran leaders. So I think that's how he'll impact this LSU football team in 2023. So we'll shift now to running back. And, when I think of running back, I think that's the big question. Who's going to be the guy this year? And I think when you ask that question, I think you need to start with the first game against Florida State. Is Armani Goodwin going to be the guy week 1 against Florida State? I'm going to say yes. And I know I make a lot of bold predictions, not only at this channel, but my other channel. And I kind of, a lot of times I base it off a feeling, which is not necessarily a good thing, but I think I get a feel that Goodwin could be the hot hand in the Florida State game. I think he's got a skill set where if you look at his power, ability to make defenders miss, toughness, receiving, with all things in play, I'm starting to think that, and with his experience, now Khalif Jackson might be more talented. Logan Diggs could be more talented. We'll have to see. I'm thinking Goodwin may be the most talented overall back with experience into consideration on this team. So I'm not counting Khalif Jackson or Trey Holly. I actually think those guys could be more talented. But with the experience coming into play if you combine experience with overall talent, I think Goodwin probably is the best back, and I think he could be the hot hand against Florida State. Maybe they get him involved early in the passing game. Maybe he breaks a couple big runs. So I'm gonna go with Goodwin as the guy. But John Emery, Noah Cain, Josh Williams, all those guys could be impactful in this game. I think Josh Williams will be impactful in that game just because likely he is the guy that starts. So, that my theory could be thrown away if Josh Williams gets off to a hot start. But yeah, I think Goodwin's skill set is a really good skill set for the running back position. I'm excited to see what he does. This could be. I don't think he necessarily has I think there's too much depth for him to have like the breakout big time year. But I think that he could have the year where maybe he's the team's second, third leading rusher, but he has some wow runs, and he really is a difference make. He has some difference making runs in multiple games. I think he's that kind of skill set, and I think he has some big key receptions in key moments. But yeah, Shelton Sampson Jr. getting a lot of buzz in camp too. Shelton Sampson, if you remember, was one of their top wide receivers for this incoming 2023 class. Shelton Sampson Jr. Yeah, Mike Denbrock talked about he can do. He's got a really good skill set. There's a lot of things he can do. A lot of things really well. He's long, lean, muscular build, guy that looks natural hands catcher of the ball. Really good run after the catch, can go up and get it, win contested catches consistently. It's all stuff I scouted him in high school, but you got to believe that all these traits should translate nicely to college. Maybe he's not going to have like the big time, run after the catch plays as many as he did in high school, but I think he's going to have quite a bit, and I think you could see a lot of that ability year one for LSU. But yeah, Sampson Jr., a guy like Kai Preen's, another guy, Kyle Parker. Kyle Parker, to me, Kyle Parker is my guy, the incoming true freshman, but I think he's got more of a skill set that he's going to really break out when – I think he's a guy that really needs to get in game action, get true live reps to show what he can do, because he's just so electric after the catch. To me, when he's running routes and just catching balls through air, I don't think that's a true indication of how talented or how good his skill set is. But yeah, I like Kyle Parker's a guy I really like a lot. Yeah, Shelton Sampson, Kyle Parker, Kai Preen. There's a lot of talented incoming wide receivers, and I've touched on it a lot. Which guy is going to emerge is the big question. Yeah, the offensive line. The offensive line is going to be really strong. Charles Turner. So I've kind of was scouting, breaking down Charles Turner a little bit. I really like Charles Turner's game a lot. A guy who in high school really showed a lot of nice things, really aggressive player, a guy that has a good anchor. He's got a better anchor than I thought, can really hunker down and hold his own against bull rushes, a guy that plays hard, competes. I think he's got really good hand usage, understands leverage. Now, he doesn't have the best leverage in the world, but he's got pretty good leverage. So Charles Turner is going to be a key guy in the offensive line. Miles Frazier, another guy too. Frazier is a guy that doesn't really get a lot of credit, but he's got a really good skill set and a guy that really gets after it and competes and got good hand usage. Does a good job to work into position to execute blocks. But yeah, the offensive line is cool to see. Emory Jones, Will Campbell on there. You hope the offensive line stays fully healthy this year because they have a chance to do some special things, and sounds like the depth is really coming on for their offensive line. Mike Denbrock talked about Mason Lunsford. Mason Lunsford, I think, is just such a forgotten about guy. Transfer from Maryland, a guy that does have experience playing at Maryland. And Mike Denbrock was talking about how well he played, and he is definitely had some flashes. Looks pretty good. So yeah, maybe Mason Lunsford does. It's probable that he could challenge Turner, maybe DeLinger. I don't know about Frazier, but probably Turner and DeLinger to get some playing time. But yeah, you like that there's more depth in the offensive line, especially with a guy like Zealand's Hurd, DJ Chester, Lunsford. Like I think that should really get you excited as an LSU fan that those three guys are your backups, because those are guys that they would have a chance to probably compete and play meaningful snaps at a lot of schools. I know Lungsford actually has proven that at Maryland. But yeah, Zealand's Hurd, DJ Chester, very talented football players. But yeah, I mean, yeah, Markway just looks smooth out there. Looked like he belongs. Looks like he carries himself with a lot of confidence. I think he trusts his ability, and you saw that in his high school tape. A guy that really looks like he knows. He looks like he knows he's going to go out and dominate. So yeah, I'm so excited to see how Mac Markway, performs. But yeah, it was cool to hear Mike Denbrock, and I think that got a lot of views. I know people are excited about this LSU offense. I'm talking about Jaden Daniels, and it seems like Jaden Daniels said he looks a little even more comfortable with his running backs and wide receivers this year. Last year they don't have to communicate as much, and as coaches always stress the guys to communicate as much as possible, but I think that goes to show that if they are just kind of thumbs up or quick signals, that they are getting more and more comfortable with each other. So I think that's really cool, and that's something that Mike Denbrock talked about, that Jaden Daniels is just so comfortable with his teammates, just a thumbs up or okay, got it. They don't really have to go. They don't have to communicate and even over communicate to kind of stress the message. I noticed Jaden Daniels just kind of quick signals to his receiver, back off a little bit, and it seemed things just look smooth. And Jaden Daniels, he looks confident, was throwing the ball well. A lot of the fades were accurate. I know it was going against air, but yeah, he looks like he is a little bit more polished this year. We'll see if that translates in the games. I think against Florida State, he should be – I'm not saying he'll play better than he did last year against Florida State, because he played okay against Florida State last year, but I think he will look more polished, even if – I think if LSU does not come out victorious against Florida State, I really don't think it's because Jaden Daniels has a bad game. I think it would probably just because Florida State, their defensive line creates enough of a threat where LSU kind of stalls out some drives, maybe has a couple 3-and-outs. I think if they lose to Florida State, I don't think it's because of they just turn the ball over too much. I think it's really just Florida State forces some punts. Florida State comes up with a few key, maybe 1 or 2 fourth down stops, maybe a goal line stop. I think that's, and that kind of leads me to my next point. I think LSU, the way they're going to lose some games this year is just because they're actually truly beaten by a better team. So I think, let's say Georgia, for example. I think if they lose to Georgia, it's really, you're not going to see a bunch of mistakes. You're not going to see a field goal return for a touchdown. You're going to see Georgia just executing at a high level. And you saw that was actually apparent last year. Georgia arguably did just execute at a higher level, but LSU also made some mistakes too. And that was kind of the summary of LSU's season last year. A lot of times LSU was the better team, but they still made some mistakes. Now this year, that's the hope with LSU. You clean up the mistakes on special teams. You clean up the turnovers on offense. You improve getting off the field on third down defensively. All those things into consideration that should lead you to winning every game. You should. I'm kind of creating the point where I think LSU is going to win every game they're favored in, most likely. Now, against Alabama, that's going to be a toss-up. So, to me, LSU could be favored in every game they play except Alabama. But I think, you think against Alabama, that was about as evenly matched as you've seen LSU and Alabama, mostly because the line of scrimmage was about dead even in that game. Now, you could argue LSU had the edge, but if you watch, I don't know. Will Anderson actually had a pretty good game in their offense. That wasn't their best. That combined with LSU, that wasn't probably the best game they've played offensively, and their defensive line played solid. So I think that was truly almost a wash at the line of scrimmage. And I think that was proven by the way it came down to the 2-point conversion. So with the exception of the Alabama game, LSU should be, them being favored in every game, I think is a huge advantage from the standpoint of they're not going to make as many mistakes. So and that's the thing. If you're the underdog, you need the team, the favorite, to make some mistakes. So that's why I guess what I'm getting at is LSU is going to be even harder to beat this year when they play teams that are less talented, just because I think they're not going to make as many mistakes. And Jaden Daniels is going to be Jaden Daniels doesn't really turn the ball over a lot to begin with, like especially last year, but I think this year is going to be more of the same. Now, he may have some turnovers where he's just trying to force something, do too much, but I think a lot of that will be because LSU's up by a couple scores. So I think Jaden Daniels will play better this year. I think that maybe he has some turnovers, but I don't think they will be costly ones. And I think if the LSU offense, hopeful thinking that they don't have as many mistakes offensive and as many special team miscues this year. But yeah, anything else I wanted to get to with LSU? So, I'd like to hear from Matt House about how the defense looks. And, yeah, you saw Ogofu and Swinson I want to hear more from, because those are guys where, to me, I think that those are guys where, even though they're not going to be huge impact guys, they are guys that you hopefully get their best season out of them. I think that is one thing in the transfer portal you're looking for. Okay, you bring in a guy who he's kind of, I'm not trying to be disrespectful with the term, but some of the guys are kind of like fill holes in the depth chart type of guys in the transfer portal. I don't think Ogofu and Swinson are necessarily those guys, but they are kind of, pieces to add depth. They're guys who add depth, but they do have some slight upside. So not taking anything away from them, but I think that you hope that with guys like that, you hope you get their absolute ceiling. And even if that doesn't mean that they are like a dominant, feared guy that offenses have to truly account for each play, you hope that that's their best season, and they make as many plays they can, and the coaching staff puts them into as many good positions to make plays as possible. I think with Ogofu, for example, Mason Smith is going to be very disruptive in the interior. You hope that Ogofu, when he's one-on-one, you hope he wins as many one-on-one matchups as he can. You hope that he uses his speed. You hope that you can see him win with speed. You hope he can win with counters to the inside. You hope he's as dominant and a sure tackler against the run, some of the high-end traits he does. You hope he can do those things as much and as often as possible. And that's how he's going to contribute to this team. Swinson, when they run stunts with him, hopefully he pressures the quarterback at as high a rate as possible. And you hope that with Swinson, you hope that he is a sure tackler. You saw every play. And he's a guy who I would tell him, if he takes a play off, I would get him off the field immediately. I would bench him for maybe a series or two, because this is a guy who he has the ability to track down ball carriers. And in the SEC, that's going to save yardage. Now, I know you got a guy like Harold Perkins who's going to save a lot of yardage by the way he can run sideline to sideline, but a guy like Swinson who's not going to give you that elite threat rushing the quarterback, I would tell him you have to go as hard as you can and pursue ball carries as hard as you can every play, or we're going to have to bench you, because that is your main role. I hope with those, I guess what I'm getting at, I hope with Ogofu and Swinson, they stress their role for those guys. That, okay, Ogofu, you got to win one-on-one and with speed as often. Swinson, you got to pressure the quarterback as often as possible on twists and stunts, and you got to pressure and you have to pursue ball carries as hard as you possibly can. I would hammer those two key elements that they can do to their game. I would hammer those over and over, those guys. And if they're not doing it, I would get them out and find someone else that can. But yeah, I think, to me, in Omar Spates, he looks like he belongs. I saw just a couple reps of him in the practice footage today. What I like, he's not fearless to put his nose in traffic, put his nose in offensive linemen, sheds blocks pretty well, and just his experience will be crucial. So you hope that Spates hits his ceiling. I think he's got his ceiling, I think, is an NFL starting linebacker. And I think his ceiling is a true difference maker for this LSU team, who makes impact plays, is very stout against the run. So I think he's a guy who he needs to play well to be a true difference maker. If he has a bad year, that could mean he's not necessarily making a lot of game-changing plays. He's solid, but not a true difference maker. So thanks for tuning in to Bayou Bengals. Make sure to stay tuned for more episodes and clips from the show. Till next time, peace.